Well, guys, the time has come to finally drive the newest of Chevy's EV fleet. This is the Silverado EV RST, and next to me, kind of incredibly, is the president of General Motors. What is happening today? We got Mark Royce. It's really good to meet you.
All right, good to see you.
This is great. So, I mean, yeah, I haven't actually set foot in this yet. We'll let this fella go. Oh, we'll go for it. All right, cool. Nice crowded driveway of all kinds of great GM vehicles. But, you know, we're going to have a formal review on the vehicle, but I wanted to kind of understand and gauge what you're most excited about. You've been with General Motors since 1983, is that right?
That's correct.
That's a storied career because a lot of folks move around a lot. And, you know, that's to stay with the company this long and to become the president is kind of incredible. Safety features galore. It must have noticed Michelle used to be in that seat. So if you want to buckle that one on the right, we'll probably be good to go. Smart. It says, hey, you did something.
That's it.
So what are you most excited about? Because now going electric in these things, like what's turning you on about this truck?
I'll tell you what, I drove this truck probably for a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I'm in an Equinox EV all winter, but getting into this truck, and I drive a lot of pickup trucks as well, but I tell you, the integration is phenomenal on this truck. And when I say integration, it's a bunch of things that we do in a very human way to make it an unbelievable experience. So everything from the steering to the four-wheel steering, to the air ride, to the braking modulation, to the actual, you know, sound and comfort and what you hear or don't hear in the cabin are all parts of vehicle integration. I would say we know how to do that better than almost anybody in the industry, so I'm very proud of our engineers to be able to do that. And it takes a lot of time. And so personal time, using it in every way that our customers use it. So whether it's braking hard or towing or, you know, all of those things are vehicle integration. And this has it better than any pickup truck I've ever driven. I
mean, I'm excited because I liked the marketing strategy of using GMC and using the Hummer brand to kind of really destigmatize electric vehicles in the market right off the bat, because there is this element of pushback where, well, I want my V8. I don't want to drive an electric vehicle. Look we've got a diesel Dodge up there rolling coal, right? And there's this machismo around it, but I thought it was really impressive and clever to come out with Hummer and say, look, we've got 1,000 horsepower. We've got 1,300 pound-feet of torque at the wheels, and really just take that edge off immediately. And now you're rolling out these types of vehicles because we're not just playing the game of like, hey, you're going to save the world with your Prius or your Bolt or whatever. We're able to kind of utilitarianize these vehicles. What do you think puts you ahead of the competition, or what do you think is going to sway people who may be, you know, on the fence about this in the future?
Well, you know, I think first of all, we're going to make both. So we General Motors has roughly in any one month between 43 and 46% of all pickup trucks made and sold. So, you know, we're not. This isn't our first truck entry, and we've been doing it for a long time. So, what's really, I think, exciting about this truck is this is not a trend. It's a truck, and so it'll tow 10,000 pounds. We've got a mid-gate that opens, you know, for an incredible bed size. We've got you know, a back window that pops out to give the open air feel. At the end of the day, trucks are you know, beautifully done these days that are absolutely incredible tools if you make a living with it. They're incredible tools if you you know, do your recreation outside of work with your family. The second row in this is second to none.
It's huge.
It's
Michelle's
huge.
back there. You can't see her, but
huge.
She, you know, you kept going back, and she had. I sat back there a little while ago. This is a very livable vehicle.
It's a very livable vehicle, and when you pull in, for instance, to, you know, park the vehicle, put the vehicle in park. The vehicle lowers so that you don't have to step high into the vehicle. All kinds of really thoughtful things for daily use. And I think, you know, 440 miles of range. I mean, there's not another pickup truck out there that has that.
That's a game changer.
It's a game changer. You know, 0 to 60 in a little under 4.5 seconds. That's a game changer for that range, battery size truck. And I think, you know, our unbelievable, innovative tailgate on the thing is pretty special too. So, I mean, Super Cruise. I mean, you're on the highway. You could have Super Cruise. You could have done all kinds of stuff. But this is a very, very pleasant place to be. But it's also a very, very pleasant place to make a living or family. Go places with your family, tow things, boats, whatever you're towing. It's very capable. So again, this isn't something that we did and rushed to market. We did it with all the things that people actually want in a pickup truck.
So for those folks who look at, someone of your caliber, you've got a pretty impressive title. You're not just a bean counter executive. You're an enthusiast, man.
I am an enthusiast. I love cars and trucks. That's why I'm here.
So what got you into this? What made you excited about cars? What's made you excited about cars in the past and kept you here? Because you have a choice. You don't have to be here. You can go do whatever you want.
No, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of people that this company puts food on the table for. So I take those responsibilities very, very seriously in the decisions we make. And but going back to why I'm in the industry is. I started, I had a grass cutting company when I was in high school, and my dad, I never had a new tractor, so my dad always bought used tractors that I learned how to fix and use. And then it got into motorcycles because I didn't have a license yet, so I was doing all kinds of, serious repairs and selling them on mini bikes and motorcycles. And then I couldn't wait to get my first car. And when I got my first car, which was a used Camaro for $1,300.
Yes.
That we found, redoing that car was everything. And so when I turned 16, I could actually drive the car. And so it just went on from there. I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I knew I wanted to be in auto, and my dad was a GM man as well. And so that was a big influence in my life. And going to work with him at the Tech Center in Warren, all of those things, I just couldn't wait to get out of school and go to work and go to and make things, right, and make cars and make trucks. And so I started. I'm a thermodynamics engineer with a little bit of nuclear power in there too.
Every mechanical engineer's favorite thing is thermo, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
So
I think I took that twice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I did all that work on valve trains and calibration on transmissions and all that good stuff. So. Yep.
I got to put you on the spot a little bit.
Yep.
Were there cars outside of the General Motors family that really inspired you growing up, or in your career, like stuff that you looked at and just said, "Oh boy, we got to do that"?
Of course. The early 930s, right in the 80s. There, the 930s were like everybody had a poster of that baby with the whale tail and the air-cooled turbos and the Widowmaker and all that stuff.
I swear to God, I did not tell him to say this. I have a 3.2 Carrera 1988.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So those are the cars, right? Those are Equinox. I made radio control versions of it. All that good stuff. So that was one, but there was a bunch too. I mean, the old Ferraris, like in the in the 60s, like the Dinos. And
absolutely.
The 365s. And
again, I did not tell him to say this. These are all my favorite toys.
The Colombo V12s. I mean,
I just did a Ferrari California Spider with a Colombo V12.
Oh, did you?
Oh man, just. Those are hero cars, man.
Yeah, they are. So those are like, oh my gosh, those are fantastic. And at the time, GM had a really, really special relationship with Pininfarina. So, we did Corvette, Ferrari, powered Corvettes. We did Ferrari Trans Am. We did, so the companies were actually very close, and it was very, very special to see that, from outside the company and wonder, what could be. So
we've got this big sea change now with EVs and stuff coming up, and I know, there's like this like religious animosity toward it on some sides and whatever, but like I feel like it's softening. What in the past, in your career, have you ever seen a paradigm shift anywhere near what's happening here, or is there any other change in the industry that you're like, look, we got over this, so they'll get over that?
I think it was some of the regulatory pressures maybe in the 70s there that gave birth to some really small cars that were very non-conventional in America anyway. So that was a big sea change. Of course, the carriage going to a motorized vehicle. There was no roads, right? And there was no fuel stations, so that was probably pretty big. But this one is probably the biggest in my lifetime for sure, and probably the biggest since some of those big changes too. And I think, a lot of this, I love both. Okay, let me just start by saying that. So I think what people don't like so much is the feeling that they're being forced to do something. Yeah. And so, I don't know if it's the car itself, because people, 80% of the people who get into an EV, and there's not that many out there really yet in different segments and price points yet, but, it's sort of like, well, I don't really want that. Well, you should probably drive it, because 80% of the people that actually go and buy one won't go back. which is a high percent. And so that means the car itself is pretty fun to drive. It's pretty satisfying. It's trouble-free from a gas. You don't have to go to a gas station. All that, all the stuff that's written is great. But, I think the choice thing, we have to offer both, and we are. And so, in every showroom you'll find both, and sometimes duplicative named vehicles, Silverado, Equinox. So you'll have a choice, and, it's not for everybody right away. We know that, and the adoption thing, who knows what happens, right? I mean, if anybody says they know, they don't.
That's really nice to hear from you, frankly, because
so I don't know.
I mean, we can predict and we can do the market research, and we've got all the torque in the world to make sure that we.
Yeah, it's highly fun to drive.
It's easy.
But at the same time, the regulatory thing, it's not going to get easier. And so, we have to be agile, and we have to be able to give people what they want and do it in a way that, hey, I had to get an EV. No, I want to get this EV. I want to get something as good looking as this Silverado or Equinox, and I want to get something with under 300 miles, and I want to get something that is very high-end, experience. It's something that takes the stress out of my day. It makes my life better. And then when that happens, people tend to get it, right? But we have to get those cars and trucks that people really, really want. And it can't be another experiment. It can't be a test. It's got to have the range. It's got to have the availability of the infrastructure. It's got to have quick charge. This truck will do 100 miles in 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a major thing.
That's a big deal, right?
And I've noticed, I feel like people buy vehicles based on their worst case scenario. You see this a lot with especially with off-road trucks, right? Most people buying like a ZR2 Bison, they spend 5% of their time doing the thing, going off on the rocks and being off-road. And that's great. I think that's what's great. It's an out-of-the-box thing and it works. But with electric vehicles, we do the same thing where we say, well, it only has 298 miles on some vehicle. Right. How am I supposed to do that?
Not on our vehicles.
Not on your vehicles. No. 440, 450 actually on some of these, depending on the trim levels. But
that's right.
That I feel like is really a shift that people are going to have to get comfortable with. How does that? What's the investment in sort of infrastructure to make people more confident, knowing like, oh, I can drive around and know that I'm not going to run out? Because running out of gas is embarrassing, but not game changing. Running out of battery is really a kind of a major
you don't
problem.
want to do that. You don't want to do either. Let's be honest. You don't want to do either, right? But I think if you really look at, which a lot of people don't have experience in until you actually have one and do it, but the duty cycle of an EV is very interesting, and it's different for everybody. But I think right around 70% of the people, period, everyday use is less than 10 miles. And so when you think about that, and you think about how many times you actually have to plug it in, or think about it, it's on a 450-mile truck, it's not very much. Right?
It's true. And I think a big thing is that, like, driving or owning an electric vehicle sometimes feels like there's this pressure, like you have to really have a lot of knowledge about the system and
that's right.
Because you've got to game it a little bit. And to me, that's the part that needs to be dissected and made easier.
It does. I totally agree. And look, it's not for everybody right now. I get that. I really do. And that's why, again, we're going to do both. But I think if you give it a chance, and you give it a chance because you like the way it looks, you like the utility of it, you like the way it performs, you like the experience, and it happens to be electric, is the right way to get people to try it.
This has been a really relaxing drive for me so far. I mean, I'm currently sat in the vehicle with the president of General Motors, trying to remember all the questions that I wrote and trying to have some discourse.
You're doing a great job
while navigating roads I've never driven, and this vehicle has taken all the stress away from me.
That's good. It's hard to explain that, right?
There is something about a commute that really sucks the life out of you in traffic that an EV really does quell.
It helps.
It helps. It's a nice little pill to soothe the soul.
It is.
But I think what I'm liking too is that within the EV family of GM, you market to different crowds. Like, this feels like a little more of the everyman's truck. This is going to be utilitarian for families who might even be their first pickup truck.
It could be.
But then you've also got Hummer, which I like the idea with the Hummer, because I think, like I said, it desensitizes people to, oh, I don't want an EV because it's outrageous. But it also, I feel like, did that give you a lot of data on how to make on-road stuff dialed in? Because this air suspension feels fantastic.
This is really dialed in, and it's hard for people to understand that I could drive a Hummer with those tires and wheels and that size of a vehicle very comfortably and very easily. And you can, drive. We just passed a mall. You can drive into a mall if people still do that and park your car.
They do look cool. It's hard to get a Hummer in a parking spot, but we managed.
Yeah. So you can do all that, and I think it did. And this is, electric vehicles are not something we did before Hummer very much. We did a few here and there over history, but not like that. So yes, it did. It really. It gave us the opportunity to really get data off of a real vehicle so that we can virtually tune something like a Silverado or an Equinox, even before we build the car. We're 95, 100, almost 100% from a design and integration standpoint. Got a clean sheet of paper that arrives pretty much done, and we take the human piece of it and we polish it, right? That's a big difference.
Yeah, General Motors too. I mean, in terms of like reputation, it's so varied because it's catered to so many different groups. It's catered to the muscle car, hardcore track enthusiast, but it's also catered to like the everyman or your first car. I mean, when I was growing up in high school, everyone had like a Cavalier or a Sunfire or things like that.
That's right.
Inexpensive, accessible cars with
first
style.
cars. Yeah, first cars.
Where is that how you envision the future of the brand?
I do. I do. On the other hand, and so it's all about how fast, and when we cadence this stuff, Tom. And I'm most proud of some of the entry level cars that, the Trax, for instance, just got Car and Driver's 10 best.
I gotta say, I was not expecting to enjoy that car, and I spent a week with it. I took it on a road trip, and I thought, if this is what the entry level is, thank God. This is unbelievable.
And Invista's the same way, right?
Yeah.
So these are like, under 20 grand-ish type things.
And Invista, what I love about Invista is it doesn't feel like a cash grab because it's only like $2,000 more.
That's right.
And you get exactly what was missing from the Trax.
That's right.
So you pay for what you get.
And a Buick design, which is
it's
different,
beautiful.
and all that.
Yeah.
So I personally, I don't know, as I go through my career, I guess, and personally, the most proud when we introduce a vehicle like the Equinox EV this year, after tax thing, that's like $27,500.
Sure.
And the Trax and the Invista and the Bolt that's going to come next year, the redone Bolt. Those are really proud moments for me personally and our company, because it's everybody's car. And I love that because, when someone who's 16 gets in one of those cars for the first time, and it's got all the safety and it's got performance to it, it's got design, and they're proud to be in it, and it's like, the first time, it's freedom, it's passion.
It's the best feeling in the world.
It's the best feeling in the world.
I still remember wanting to be 16 in the biggest way.
Totally, and I think that's a big deal. In this country in particular, is still a huge deal, and those are what we're all about. And I'm so proud of our teams. Yeah.
And, GM isn't unfamiliar with, you're not late to the game. You guys were one of the first in the game because, I'd be remiss to not say EV1 was like a big thing. Of course, there's all kinds of like conspiracies around it.
Oh, there's all kinds of
which is fun.
Interesting writing about that.
We'll talk about that off camera.
Yeah.
But we had one at my school. I went to WPI in Worcester, and we had an EV1, and it had a drag coefficient of like 0.19 or something. Some absurd thing.
At the time, it was the best ever.
It was incredible, and it was so incredible how much people loved them, and it was really funny how we went from a world where people thought, how dare they take away this electric car, to they're going to make me drive an electric car. And it's always fun to see how the public discourse plays out.
Well, it's very interesting, and it's very much a pendulum, right? It can be much a pendulum because the news wave, right, swings hard in this country.
For sure.
But I think at the end of the day, again, it all gets back to product and how well did you serve our customer with something that is gorgeous and fulfills everything they want. And whether it's electric or ICE, it still goes back to that. And I think, when people really get into and drive these, which there's just no experience in like it, but there's a lot of people who don't have that experience, unfortunately. So I think it'll just be time, right?
Yeah. Now, I think I took a wrong turn, but we'll be okay.
I'll be all right.
So, all right, I have to ask you this question just because every time I publish some like old Pontiac or something, someone goes, when is GM bringing back Pontiac? We need this. Now, so I have to, just for the fans, I have to say, like, could we ever see like a Pontiac GTO come back in some like outrageous form? I mean, we brought Hummer back, so.
We did. And I would never say never on any of that stuff because, again, the market's so dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And I love that stuff. And there's a lot of history there and a lot of cool stuff. And, a lot of people were very loyal to Pontiac. That's, when those brands went away, it was a pretty tough time in the country. It was a tough time in the world. It was a really tough time in General Motors, and a lot of those decisions were made not by myself or the people that are currently leading General Motors, but were necessity driven by the condition of the company. So I respect those decisions and why they were made, but you gotta love Pontiac, right?
It has such a heart, and I think I didn't recognize it until it's
not
gone.
It's not on our horizon immediately. Or
That's
like
okay.
That, but,
that's okay. I appreciate that you even answered this question.
No.
You could have jumped out of the car. So.
No. Those are all great American things, and I just would never say never.
Yeah. I think it's really refreshing to talk to someone in a leadership position who's just genuinely thrilled about cars and not necessarily just about, of course you have to be concerned about moving metal. You've got to get them on the shelves.
Sure.
And you've got to get them in people's driveways. But, every time I drive a Chevy or a GMC, I'm consistently reminded by the tuning and the refinement of these vehicles that, like, care went into this. These really
very human. It's very human,
and I can tell that a lot of effort and energy went into making them drive a certain way and deliver a certain experience. So
I'm really happy to hear you say that because people work really, really hard to do that, and they know it matters, and they're people that genuinely appreciate that comment.
Well, let's jump into.
As do I.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and the thing is, I grew up as a Volvo, BMW, Porsche guy. My mom did have an Oldsmobile, but that's just kind of always where I've been. Yeah. This wasn't in the cards for me. I'm not a truck guy, but every time I drive one of these, I'm like, wow, I can't believe what you can do with a truck. So let's jump in the Equinox, and if we've got some time, and take a little ride in that, and just see how the more entry level plays
for sure.
out.
Yeah,
cool.
I drove it all winter, so I'm excited.
Fantastic. I gotta say, you guys do the best cameras in the game.
Thank you.
Like,
they're all
matters.
HD. They're all HD.
It friggin' matters, man.
It does.
So many. Look at this. Because I probably wouldn't. I've never been in this car before, and I probably wouldn't make that move in an unfamiliar driveway with the president of GM in the car. Like crashes new Equinox. But now we're kind of sitting in the everyman's EV. This is cool because this is coming in sort of in that $30,000 price range. Am I right?
It is. It's it'll be 35 before the IRA tax credit, and then with the tax credit it's like 27.5.
That's wild.
Which is a great value, and this one
we'll get a little acceleration too. Because the thing is, people, you think of EVs and you think I'm going to hold this because it's going to probably fly. I mean, this is great, and what I like about the power level of this is, of course, I get excited when an electric vehicle has like 1,000 horsepower. However, we need our kids to be able to drive these cars.
That's right.
And I don't really want them 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. I mean, there's a level of like sanity that needs to be put into place. And I feel like this really serves that like family vehicle vibe where you can share it with everybody.
You did. I have 3 kids, so one of them's 6'6". So and he's
So you have an incentive to make nice headway with these cars.
So he came home from New York, and we're tooling around in it, and he's like, "Wow, this is like really different than what I thought it was going to be." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "This is." Then he drove it, and he's like, "Wow, this is a right in the wheelhouse of, look, he played baseball all over the United States. We drove, soccer. My 2 girls played soccer all over, the place. And so you need a utility, and that's kind of what happened with all the crossovers as they came into market, right? People really needed that for all the activities and things like sports, not necessarily only sports, but family things, right? That you can put luggage in the back behind the second row. You can put three people in the second row, and so you can really do that. And then with Super Cruise, the whole thing gets really easy. And driving up North Michigan, for instance, that's a great trip, and over 300 miles is fantastic. This get 319 miles rated on this, and that's real miles, so it's right in the wheelhouse. And again, I drove one all winter, so I went through the winter in very cold Michigan winters with snow and ice, and I'll tell you, it was just a joy. It really was. I always felt safe. I always felt like I wasn't going to get stuck or stranded or any of that stuff. And it's just it's a low center of gravity with the battery pack.
Yeah.
Which is very different.
Well, it makes them handle nicely,
It
too,
does.
because even though you've got a little extra weight, there's only so much you can mask,
That's
but
right. That's right.
it's confident and comfortable because you don't end up with some floppy top-heavy
right.
thing.
Yeah. And you're super cruising right now.
Yeah, it's great. And
Yeah.
this is the thing is, of course it's great when you get Super Cruise on a $100,000 truck like we might have just been in, but it's more impressive to me when we're in something like this, where we're in like a $30,000 price
Yep.
range, and you get, this is a high-tech feature.
It's a very high-tech feature. We're actually meshing, what's on the road with what our LiDAR maps are, in as we go. And so it's a very safe system as well. We were first with this system, sort of the L2++, but we're also the safest and really the only true hands-free. We were first with that. So
I know it feels weird that I'm allowed to do this, because what it doesn't do is it doesn't bark at me and say, hey, you need to do this. You are entitled to operate like this. And I've driven Chevy Bolt on, I think a 500-mile road trip. I took the Hummer EV on a road trip with Super Cruise, and the Hummer EV did the Merritt Parkway in Connecticut with Super Cruise, which is like,
it's pretty awesome.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is, if you're familiar with Connecticut, that is a terrifying road, and the fact that you could let a Hummer drive itself was really special.
Yeah.
But no, I think this is a big step in democratizing EVs to people as well.
It is.
And I think, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how these sales are going to play out. We don't know how adoption rates are going to be. However, if you don't take charge of it, and you don't put them out there, and you don't make improvements, and you don't continuously make them better, I mean, we know the result of that.
It's a bad result, because you won't be able to sell ICE vehicles because of it from a regulatory standpoint,
Sure.
It's a big deal, right? I mean, it's huge. So that's the reality of it. But I would also say you don't have to drive an EV. You should want to drive one, and that's the cars and trucks we're making.
I think that's
a
the
big
thing.
difference.
Yeah, you're totally right, and that's the thing. How do we get folks to want to drive them? And I think where I'm sitting, it feels, I'm not allowed to talk about driving impressions on this one yet, but that one's overheated, so we'll let that one keep going.
Oh wow! I was like, that's not the car, is it?
No. That's a new program noise.
Like, wow. I've heard it all, but I haven't heard that one.
No, but I think, as long as the cars are enjoyable and they bring delight to people, they'll be good. I mean, GM has always been really known for like dynamic handling and stuff. I mean, Mag Ride was such a game changer.
Totally.
And it put you in a class of very expensive rivals.
Well, I mean, Ferrari bought our systems for a long time.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
And then these air ride suspensions have been really impressive on the Hummer and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to what that looks like in an Escalade, where it literally needs to compete with a Rolls Royce. I mean,
it does.
And that's what's wild. Is
it really does.
And to do it for a quarter of the price is really special.
Yep. Well, you'll see the Celestiq someday too when we start production of that. You'll get to drive one of those.
Yeah.
I don't know if do you go to Pebble Beach at all or no?
I haven't. I want to.
I've never been,
Something
and
I
I'm
gotta
going for
do.
the first time this year. And so we're going to have actually people driving Celestiqs there. So that'll be the first sort of road impression of
I'll
it.
find my way over there.
Yeah, I was going to say you need to probably need to go to that.
We'll put it on camera. I would like to drive the Celestiq.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
That would be a really cool thing
Yeah.
to do. No, I'm always more impressed when someone can make a lot with a little, versus, because anyone can make a lot with a lot.
Sure, of course.
You've got a $400,000 car. Like,
okay.
Congratulations, you made it good.
You 3D printed everything. It's great, right? It's awesome. Like try and do that.
There's 9 cows in the leather. Of course it smells good. Of course the touch points are good.
Exactly.
But if you can make me believe that this is a good place to be for cheap, that's where I'm sold. That's where I get excited.
That's value.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And more than ever, value is so critical.
Totally.
Because, we don't want to strain the public. We don't want everyone to be on a shoestring budget because they've got $1,000 car payment.
No.
And we also we want to democratize safety.
That we do.
I think that's a really big deal. Like, cheap cars are important because you need to be able to have safe cars. You can't just put everyone in 1995.
No, that's exactly right. That's the best value. That's the best reason to buy a new car. Every Friday we go out for 4 hours and we drive off property in every vehicle, starting with positioning the vehicle where we have just the competition on there, and we're going to pick a place to go do a new vehicle, all the way through 100% calibration and ship to commerce. So I see every vehicle we do at every stage of development, and I see a different one with all the competition, so we're never surprised on each Friday.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's pretty awesome.
That's what I dig about this, is there's clearly this hands-on aspect, and like I said, I mean, you've got to be driving these cars if you want to play this game.
Absolutely. So that's what I do.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Good for you. Did you ever think you'd be, all right, what was your first gig like when you first started in 83?
I was working in an engine dynamometer in a lab at the proving grounds, working on valve train noise. on V6s. So all the stiffness and all the different elements and how to do rocker arms and combustion and all that stuff. So
I gotta ask, like, did you ever then think like, I'm gonna be the president of General Motors? Yeah.
No, I did not. I wanted to be a chief engineer of a car.
That's nuts.
Or a powertrain, either one. I really wanted to do that, and I did that, and it was great.
It's funny when I looked, like, I did a little research on you just to like see what was up. And
did you? Yeah.
When I started digging, I don't know, I just had this sense of like, I'm really happy for him.
Oh, that's really nice.
Like, because I thought this is a cool career.
Thank you.
To be
that's very nice.
Like, within this business for so long, in the same brands, and evolving from, God, the 80s, there's some like rough stuff happening through there.
You have no idea.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, we couldn't take capacity out fast enough.
Like, holy shit, it's the Wild West, man.
Yeah,
and then now we're going into this. It's like, what an unbelievable ability to have seen some of like the cheapest things known to man.
Yep.
That were kind of disposable, to like going up into these really ultra refined electric vehicles. Like, who would have thought?
It's pretty cool. I was thinking about it the other day.
Thank you, Michelle.
And it was cool because my wife, I've been married to for 32 years, and I worked in a plant when I met her at Orion up here, and I was working second shift, and my mom introduced me to her, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'll meet her, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is great, right? And so that was it. And so, but at that time, I made 8th level in our company in a plant. And my first company car was a white LeSabre.
Oh, yeah.
With a velour bench seat and wire wheel covers, white walls. And
a real company, man.
Yeah, it was in Buick City, made in Buick City. And I was like thrilled. I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I got a company car. And it was a big day. And I was like, oh my God, I was thinking, I don't know why I was thinking about it. And it's pretty cool because that was a big day for me, a huge day. Because they paid for gas and it's just, God dang.
Well, you feel like an imposter. You're like,
I
can't believe it.
I know.
Oh my
I couldn't believe it.
They gave me a car.
I know. And that was the engine I was working on was a 3800 V6, which was one of our best ever.
I still love a 3800.
Yeah.
There's nothing sounds like it. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. And so, I was very proud of that too. So it was cool.
I can't thank you enough for taking the time to to drive with me. I like that we're not just doing this in a garage.
No, me too. I love it.
This is really fun.
I drive these a lot. I don't get to ride in them a lot, which is great. Yeah, it's great.
Too cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to whatever you guys are doing in the future because I've had fun in your vehicles lately.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that.
And that's a big deal because it's really easy to become a brand loyalist, especially in this town. this is a brand loyal town. If you're
It
a
is.
Ford guy, you're a Chevy guy.
Yeah, absolutely
Even
is.
between GM and Chevy and GMC, you see
Sure.
people who will
Tribal.
It's really tribal. And what I'm finding is I'm like, every time I drive something you guys put in my driveway, I'm less tribal, I'm more open.
Yeah.
And I think if people get behind the wheels of these cars, they're gonna find what you built to be enjoyable. And
Great.
you know,
I'm so happy to hear that.
the prices make sense. Great. I look forward to seeing what the sales figures are. I really wish you guys the best of luck with these, because
Thank you.
I think they're overall good cars, and I
Yeah,
like that
thank
you're not alienating the lower end of the market.
No.
And a lot of brands are. It's hard to get in it feels like $60,000 like a normal amount of money to spend on a car. Most people don't have $60,000.
No, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and it's it's artificially high because of the pandemic and the chips and all that stuff. But that's not the end game there. It just isn't. It can't. It won't be. It'll equalize, and we got to be right in that wheelhouse of value and price, and really sophisticated, enjoyable products that are that people really want to have.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you
Thank
so
you, Tom.
much.
Yeah, appreciate
Seriously.
it. Thank you.